The notification chimed while I was making coffee. My wife's phone sat on the kitchen counter, screen glowing with a new voice message. She was in the shower, and I wasn't trying to snoop, but the preview text made my blood run cold. Your oblivious husband probably thinks we're just working late again, face with tears of joy. My hand trembled as I picked up the device. The message was from Derek, her work buddy from the marketing department. They'd been collaborating on a major campaign for months, staying late at the office, exchanging constant messages. She'd always assured me it was purely professional, and I'd believed her. Why wouldn't I? We'd been married for 8 years, had 2 kids, and I thought we had something solid. I knew her passcode. We'd always been open about our phones. At least, I thought we had been. My finger hovered over the screen for a moment before I unlocked it and opened the message thread. The voice message played, and Derek's smug voice filled the kitchen. God, it's almost too easy. He just accepts everything you tell him. Working late again, honey. And he probably just nods and goes back to whatever boring thing he does. Does he even suspect anything? My wife's laughter came through the next message, recorded while she was supposedly in a client meeting yesterday. Not a clue. He's so trusting it's almost sad. I told him we had a presentation deadline, and he actually offered to pick up the kids and make dinner. He even said he was proud of how hard I was working. Her voice dripped with mockery. Sometimes I feel bad, but then Derek sends me those messages during dinner and I have to hide my phone so he doesn't see me smiling. I gripped the counter to steady myself. The shower was still running upstairs. I kept listening. Derek again. The IT guy asked me today if I was sleeping with you. Can you believe that? I almost laughed in his face. I told him we're just friends. The funny thing is, watching your husband play the supportive spouse while we text each other right in front of him, that's the real thrill. Yesterday when we had drinks after work, and you told him you were in a team meeting? Classic. There were dozens more messages spanning weeks. They weren't having an affair, at least not a physical one, but they were getting off on the deception itself. Making a fool of me was their private joke, their shared entertainment. Every late night at the office, every work dinner, every time she'd smiled at her phone while I was cooking or helping our daughter with homework, they'd been laughing at me. I heard the shower turn off. My heart pounded as I quickly opened my email and forwarded the entire message thread to myself, along with texts where they'd explicitly discussed their game of seeing how much they could get away with. Screenshots of Derek's messages about how pathetic I was for trusting my wife. Images of them at bars when she was supposedly working late, captioned with jokes about the cover stories she'd told me. I put her phone back exactly where it was and returned to making coffee, my hands somehow steady despite the rage burning through my veins. She came downstairs 20 minutes later, hair wet, wearing the blouse I'd complimented last week, the one she'd bought for client meetings. She kissed my cheek, and I didn't flinch. I smiled. I asked about her day. I listened to her talk about the difficult project and how Derek was really helping her navigate office politics. You're amazing, I told her, handing her a cup of coffee. I'm so proud of what you're accomplishing. She beamed, squeezed my hand, and checked her phone. I watched her smile at whatever message Derek had sent, probably something mocking this exact moment. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat in my home office and began organizing everything. Screenshots, voice messages, timestamps cross-referenced with the lies she told me. I created a detailed document, completely anonymous, outlining a pattern of workplace harassment, unprofessional conduct, and the misuse of company time and resources for personal entertainment. By 2 a.m., I had everything ready. By 3 a.m., I'd sent it to their company's HR department, their department head, and the ethics hotline from an encrypted email account. Their oblivious husband was about to get the last laugh. Friday morning arrived with artificial normalcy. I made breakfast while she got ready for work, playing the role I'd apparently been cast in, the naive, supportive husband who didn't know he was the punchline. She chatted about her weekend plans, mentioned that Derek wanted to grab drinks after work to decompress from the campaign stress. That's fine, I said, flipping pancakes. I'll take the kids to the park. She looked almost disappointed that I didn't protest. Maybe the game was losing its appeal when I made it too easy. You're the best, she said, but her eyes were already on her phone, probably coordinating with Derek about how they'd spend their evening mocking my compliance. I'd done my research throughout the night. Their company, a mid-sized marketing firm, had recently implemented strict policies about workplace conduct after a harassment lawsuit the previous year. The employee handbook explicitly prohibited using company resources for personal entertainment, harassment of any kind, and behavior that created a hostile work environment. What Derek and my wife were doing, using company messaging systems to mock a colleague's spouse, fabricating work obligations, meeting at bars on company time, violated at least a dozen policies. The anonymous report I'd sent was meticulous. I'd included timestamps of when they claimed to be working versus when they were actually at bars. Screenshots of Derek's messages mocking other colleagues. Evidence that they'd encouraged others in the office to participate in their jokes about unsuspecting spouses. I'd even found messages where Derek had made inappropriate comments about other women in the office, using the same mocking tone he used about me. I wasn't just targeting them for hurting me. I was showing their employer a pattern of toxicity. Friday at work, I'm an architect. Work I find meaningful even if Derek apparently found it boring. I couldn't concentrate. I kept imagining Monday morning. HR departments always investigated serious complaints over the weekend, especially anonymous ones with this much documentation. They'd want to act quickly to protect the company from liability. My phone buzzed. A text from my wife. Derek and I killed the presentation. Celebrating at O'Malley's. Might be late. It was 3 p.m. They weren't supposed to present until next week. Another lie, poorly constructed because she'd gotten lazy. Why be careful when your husband was so oblivious? I picked up my kids from school, took them for ice cream, helped my son build a Lego spaceship, read my daughter her favorite story twice. Normal, boring dad activities. The kind of thing Derek probably sneered at while sipping overpriced cocktails with my wife. She came home at 10 p.m., slightly tipsy, smelling of cigarettes though she claimed she'd quit years ago. How were the kids? She asked, kicking off her heels. Perfect, I said. I'm heading to bed. Big project on Monday. Me too, she yawned. This campaign is going to make my career. Derek says the executives are really impressed with our work. Our work. Their little partnership. Their inside jokes. Their shared secret life that existed specifically to make me look foolish. I'm proud of you, I said, and watched her smile at the praise from the man she was betraying. Saturday and Sunday crawled by. We did family activities, the zoo, a movie, dinner at her parents' house. She was on her phone constantly, giggling at messages she'd angle away from me. Once, I saw Derek's name flash across the screen with a string of laughing emojis. Sunday night, she laid out her outfit for Monday. A new dress, professional but stylish. Big week ahead, she explained. We're presenting to the board on Wednesday. You'll be amazing, I told her. I barely slept that night. Not from anxiety, I was certain I'd done the right thing. But from anticipation. 8 years of marriage, and I'd never seen what she looked like when the mask slipped. When the person who thought she was so clever, so superior to her oblivious husband, realized she'd been played. My alarm went off at 6 a.m. Monday morning. She was already awake, nervous energy radiating off her as she checked her appearance one more time. I made coffee, kissed her goodbye, told her I loved her. Love you too, she said absently, already mentally at the office with Derek, probably planning their next joke at my expense. I watched her car pull out of the driveway. Then I called in sick to work. There was no way I was going to miss this. By 8:30 a.m., I was parked down the street from her office building, coffee in hand, waiting. The HR department opened at 8. If they'd taken my report seriously, and with that much evidence, they'd act fast. At 9:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. A call from my wife. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, another call. Then 3 texts in rapid succession. Call me. Something happened at work. I need to talk to you now. I smiled and took another sip of coffee. Monday morning had arrived, and everything was about to collapse. The calls kept coming. By 10:15 a.m., my wife had called 6 times and sent 14 increasingly frantic texts. I sat in my car, watching employees filter in and out of the building's glass doors, and didn't respond. She needed to sit in this, to feel the panic of a situation spiraling beyond her control. Finally, at 10:45, I called back. She answered before the first ring finished. "Where have you been?" Her voice was shrill, the practiced professional polish completely gone. "I've been calling for an hour." "I was in the shower," I lied smoothly. Funny how easy deception became once you'd seen it modeled so perfectly. "What's wrong?" She lowered her voice, and I could hear the echo of a hallway or stairwell. She wasn't at her desk. Derek got suspended. Security walked him out this morning. "What? Why?" I infused my voice with concern, confusion, just the right amount of supportive husband worry. "They won't tell us." HR called him in at 8:30, and an hour later he was packing his desk with security watching. His computer, his phone, everything was confiscated. She was talking fast, words tumbling over each other. "And now they want to see me." They scheduled a meeting for 11:30 with HR and the department head. "What if this affects the campaign? What if?" "I'm sure it's fine," I interrupted. "Maybe Derek did something unrelated to you. Don't panic." "You don't understand." Her voice cracked. "What if someone saw us at the bars? What if they think that we were doing something inappropriate?" The irony was exquisite. After months of thinking she was so clever, she'd finally realized how bad the optics were. But she still thought she could control the narrative, still believed she could explain it away. "Were you doing something inappropriate?" I asked quietly. The pause was too long. "Of course not. We were just colleagues having drinks. Networking. But you know how HR can be, they twist everything." "Then just tell them the truth," I said. "You have nothing to hide, right?" "Right," she said, but she didn't sound convinced. "I have to go. The meeting's in 20 minutes. I'll call you after." She hung up without saying goodbye. I knew what was happening in that building. HR had my documentation. They had voice messages of Derek and my wife mocking me, yes, but more importantly, they had evidence of Derek making inappropriate comments about female colleagues, of both of them falsifying timesheets, of using company resources for personal entertainment. They had screenshots of messages sent during work hours that had nothing to do with work. They had proof that the client meetings and late-night presentations were fabricated. The harassment of me, an employee's spouse, was bad enough. But the pattern of unprofessional conduct, the potential liability, the toxic culture they'd created, that was a fireable offense. My phone rang again at 1:30 p.m. My wife, crying. "They're opening an investigation," she sobbed. "A formal investigation. They showed me, someone sent the messages, screenshots, everything. They asked if I'd been having an affair with Derek. They asked about the bars, about lying about work obligations. They have voice messages." Her voice broke completely. "How did they get the voice messages?" "What voice messages?" I asked, my tone carefully neutral. "From Derek's phone. And mine. Messages where we were joking about stuff. Private messages that someone sent to HR. Joking about what?" Another long pause. "It doesn't matter. They're taking it out of context. They suspended Derek pending investigation, and they're putting me on administrative leave until they complete their review." Administrative leave? For what? Violating company policy. Creating a hostile work environment. Misuse of company time and resources. She was crying harder now. "This is going to destroy my career. The campaign, the presentation to the board, they're giving it to someone else. 8 months of work. Gone. And Derek texted me from his personal phone. He's blaming me. He says I should have been more careful, that this is my fault because I kept the messages on my phone." Of course Derek was abandoning ship. Rats always did. "Come home," I said. "We'll figure this out. I can't drive like this. Can you come get me?" "I'm already on my way," I lied. I was still parked down the street, watching. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I gave her time to pull herself together, then drove around the block and pulled up to the building's entrance. She was sitting on a bench outside, mascara streaked down her face, looking small and defeated. The confident woman who'd left that morning was gone. She got in the car without speaking. We drove in silence for 5 minutes before she said, "Someone hacked my phone." That's the only explanation. Someone hacked both our phones and sent everything to HR. Who would do that? I don't know. Her hands were shaking. Maybe a competitor. Someone who wanted to sabotage the campaign? Or, she turned to me suddenly, eyes wide. What if it was Derek's wife? She's always been suspicious of us. The deflection was almost impressive. Even now, caught and humiliated, she was trying to create an alternative narrative. Anything to avoid accountability. Was there a reason for her to be suspicious? I asked. No. The denial came too quick, too sharp. We were just friends. Work friends. That's all. We pulled into our driveway. She sat in the car, staring at our house like she didn't recognize it. What did the voice messages say? I asked. The ones that got sent to HR. She closed her eyes. Nothing. Just stupid jokes. Inside jokes about work stuff. They made it sound worse than it was. Jokes about what? It doesn't matter, she snapped, then caught herself. I'm sorry. I'm just stressed. Can we talk about this later? I need to think about what to say to the investigators. She went inside, straight to our bedroom, and closed the door. I heard her on the phone, probably calling Derek, probably coordinating their stories. I sat in the living room and waited. The real reckoning hadn't even started yet. The house was silent except for my wife's muffled voice behind the bedroom door. I could hear the pitch changing, defensive, then pleading, then angry. Her conversation with Derek wasn't going well. After 30 minutes, the door flew open and she stormed past me to the kitchen, phone clenched in her hand. That coward, she hissed, pouring herself a glass of wine with shaking hands. It was 2 p.m. on a Monday. He's throwing me under the bus. His lawyer told him not to talk to me, but he sent one last text saying I was the one who suggested going to bars, I was the one who initiated the personal conversations. He's painting himself as the victim. Maybe you should get a lawyer too, I suggested. She whirled around. With what money? Do you know what lawyers cost? And if this escalates, if they fire me, we lose my income. The mortgage, the kids' school, everything. She pressed her palms against her eyes. This was supposed to be my year. The campaign was going to put me on track for senior director. Derek promised. Derek promised what? She caught herself again, took a long drink of wine. That the campaign would showcase our work. That's all. I watched her, this woman I'd loved for 8 years, lying even now. The tragedy was that if she'd just been honest, if at any point in the last few months she'd said, I have a friend at work and maybe we've gotten too close, maybe I need to set better boundaries, we could have worked through it. But the deception, the mockery, the elaborate game they'd played at my expense? That was unforgivable. Can I see the messages HR showed you? I asked. No. She refilled her glass. They made me sign a confidentiality agreement during the investigation. I can't share details with anyone. Not even your husband. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Suspicion? Fear? Why are you so interested in the messages? Because I want to help you, I said simply. I want to understand what happened so we can figure out how to fix it. The suspicion faded. Of course it did. I was the oblivious husband, remember? The one who just wanted to support his wife, who asked simple questions and accepted simple answers. She sat down at the kitchen table, shoulders slumping. They were just stupid voice messages where Derek and I were joking around, venting about work stress. But HR is interpreting them as unprofessional. They're saying we created a hostile work environment because we made fun of other people in the office. Did you make fun of other people? Not seriously. Just the way everyone does, commenting on weird habits, annoying quirks. But someone compiled everything and made it look like we were bullies. Her voice hardened. And the worst part? They asked if I'd been mocking you. If I'd discussed our marriage with Derek inappropriately. My heart rate picked up, but I kept my expression neutral. What did you tell them? The truth. That Derek and I sometimes talked about our personal lives, the way friends do, but it was never inappropriate. Never. She was convincing herself as much as me. They took a few jokes out of context and twisted them into something ugly. What kind of jokes? I don't remember exactly, she said too quickly. Just normal conversation. They made it sound like we were having an emotional affair or something, which is ridiculous. The phone on the table buzzed. She grabbed it, read the message, and her face went pale. What is it? Derek's wife. Her voice was barely a whisper. She's filing for divorce. She says the messages HR showed her were proof he'd been emotionally cheating. She's taking the kids and, her hand flew to her mouth. Oh God. What if she calls you? What if she sends you the messages? I tilted my head, playing confused. Why would she send me messages between you and Derek? She wouldn't. She stood abruptly. I need to think. I need to figure out what to say to the investigators when they call me back. When are they calling? Tomorrow. They want a formal interview, separate from Derek's. They're interviewing everyone who worked on the campaign, everyone who might have witnessed inappropriate conduct. She laughed bitterly. Half the office went to happy hour together. Are they going to fire everyone? Maybe it's not about happy hour, I said. Maybe it's about what you did or said during those happy hours. She shot me a look, sharp and defensive. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I'm just trying to understand the situation. We stood in tense silence. Finally, she grabbed her wine glass and headed back to the bedroom. I'm going to prepare for the interview. Can you pick up the kids from school? Of course, I said to her back. After she closed the door, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I'd been monitoring the anonymous email account I'd used to send the report. That afternoon, HR had responded, thanking the concerned party for bringing these issues to their attention and confirming that they were taking appropriate action to protect all employees. There was a second email, sent an hour ago, asking if the concerned party had any additional information about the scope of Derek and my wife's conduct. They were building a case, being thorough. They wanted to make sure they caught everything before making final decisions. I typed a response. I believe other employees may have been affected by similar conduct. Several people on the marketing team appeared uncomfortable around Derek and his work partner. There may be witnesses who were afraid to come forward. I hit send and closed the laptop. Let the investigation expand. Let them interview everyone. The more people talked, the more the truth would come out, not just about the messages mocking me, but about the toxic environment Derek and my wife had created while thinking they were untouchable. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Is this the husband? This is Derek's wife. We need to talk. The walls were closing in from every direction now. And my wife, locked in our bedroom, still thought she could manage the narrative, still believed she was the smartest person in the room. By tomorrow, she'd know better. I stared at the text from Derek's wife for a long moment before responding, "Who is this?" The reply came immediately, Amanda. Derek's wife. HR sent me screenshots as part of their investigation because my name was mentioned. I think you deserve to see them too. My stomach tightened. This wasn't part of my plan, but it was inevitable. The documentation I'd sent HR didn't just expose Derek and my wife. It implicated their spouses as subjects of their mockery, potential witnesses to the damage. Of course HR would reach out to Amanda during their investigation. I'm not sure that's appropriate, I typed back. This is between your husband and my wife and their employer. Please. Just look at what I'm sending. Then decide. 3 images appeared. Screenshots of the voice messages I'd already heard, now formatted as official evidence with timestamps and case numbers. But seeing them like this, sterile, documented, irrefutable, made them hit differently. Derek's voice, transcribed, "Does your husband even suspect anything? He's so trusting it's almost sad." My wife's laughter, transcribed, "Not a clue. Sometimes I feel bad, but then you send me those messages during dinner and I have to hide my phone so he doesn't see me smiling." Amanda's next message, "There are 47 more messages like this. 47. They spent months making fools of us. I'm filing for divorce. You should know what kind of person you're married to." I didn't respond. Instead, I sat in the kitchen as the afternoon light faded, thinking about the moment when everything shifted. It wasn't discovering the messages, it was hearing my wife's laughter. The pure, unguarded joy in her voice as she mocked my trust, my love, my efforts to support her career. That sound had crystallized something. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. It was cruelty, deliberate and sustained. The bedroom door opened. My wife emerged, eyes red, makeup ruined, wearing sweatpants and one of my old t-shirts. She looked younger somehow, vulnerable. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. "I need to tell you something," she said, voice small. I waited. "The investigation is worse than I thought. They have voice messages where Derek and I," she swallowed hard, "where we talked about you. About our marriage. And it sounds bad, but it wasn't what it seems like. We were just venting, just being stupid, and someone recorded it and sent it to HR." "What did you say about me?" She sat down across from me, hands clasped on the table. "I said things I didn't mean. Jokes that were inappropriate. Derek would complain about his wife, and I'd joke about you, and it just became this thing we did. Stupid, meaningless venting. But HR is treating it like evidence of an affair." "Were you having an affair?" "No." She reached for my hand, and I let her take it. "Never. Not physical, not emotional, nothing. Derek was a friend who understood work stress. That's all. But the messages make it sound like more because we were being dramatic and stupid." "What exactly did you say about me in these messages?" She withdrew her hand. "Does it matter? They were jokes." "It matters to me." "Fine." Her voice hardened. "I said you were boring sometimes. That you didn't understand my work. That you were too trusting. Happy. They're taking those comments and building some narrative that I don't love you or respect you, which is insane." "Is it insane?" I asked quietly. "You spent months mocking me with another man. You lied about where you were, what you were doing. You laughed at my trust. That's not love. That's not respect." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. You heard the messages." HR shared them with Derek's wife because her name was mentioned. "She sent them to me an hour ago." The color drained from her face. No, she wouldn't. How did she even get your number?" "Does it matter?" I stood up. "I heard you laughing. I heard you call me oblivious, sad, boring. I heard Derek suggest that fooling me was part of the thrill. And you know what the worst part is? You're still lying. You're sitting here trying to minimize it, calling it stupid jokes like that makes it okay." "I'm sorry." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I got caught up in something, and it was wrong, and I hate myself for it. But we can fix this. I'll do anything, counseling, whatever you want. Please." "Why?" She blinked. "What? Why should we fix this? Give me one reason I should forgive you." "Because I love you. Because we have kids, a life together, 8 years of marriage. Because everyone makes mistakes." "This wasn't a mistake," I said. "Mistakes are accidents. You made a choice, every single day, to mock me, to lie to me, to get entertainment from my trust. You chose Derek over our marriage. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally. You chose him." She was sobbing now, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, just emptiness. "I need you," she choked out. "If you leave, if we divorce, I'll lose everything. My job is probably gone, my career is destroyed, and without your income to support us. There it is, I said softly. You need me. Not love, not respect. Need. That's not fair. You and Derek spent months laughing about fairness. About how unfair it was that you had such oblivious spouses. Well, now you get to see what fair actually looks like. I walked to the bedroom, pulled my already packed suitcase from the closet, and headed for the door. Where are you going? She called after me. To my brother's. I'll pick up the kids from school tomorrow and explain that Mom and Dad need some space. You focus on your HR investigation. Wait, please, we need to talk about this. I turned back one last time. She was standing in the hallway, destroyed, desperate, finally seeing me clearly. Here's what's going to happen, I said. HR is going to fire you and Derek for violating multiple company policies. Derek's wife is filing for divorce, and so am I. You'll share custody of the kids, assuming you can keep a roof over your head without your income. And that feeling you have right now? That panic, that fear, that humiliation? That's a fraction of what you put me through. You did this. Her tears stopped. You sent those messages to HR. You sabotaged my career. No, I corrected. You sabotaged your career the moment you decided mocking your husband was more fun than respecting your marriage. I just made sure there were consequences. I left her standing there and drove to my brother's house. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside without questions. That night, I slept better than I had in months. By Wednesday, my wife was officially terminated. Derek was fired the same day. The company released a vague statement about personnel changes and commitment to workplace professionalism. The campaign they'd worked on was shelved entirely, too tainted by association. Derek's wife filed for divorce on Thursday. I filed on Friday. My wife called 17 times that weekend. I answered once, only to tell her that all future communication should go through my lawyer. She tried to argue, to explain, to bargain. I hung up. The kids were confused but resilient. I told them Mom and Dad were taking a break, that sometimes adults needed space, that it had nothing to do with how much we loved them. They'd learn the full truth eventually, when they were old enough to understand. 2 months later, I'm rebuilding. The divorce is proceeding. My wife moved to a smaller apartment, working a junior position at a different company. The scandal followed her. Derek, I heard through mutual connections, is working retail while fighting his own divorce. And me. I'm the boring, oblivious husband who turned out to be paying attention all along. The man who understood that trust isn't weakness, it's a gift. And when that gift is mocked, disrespected, and thrown away, there are consequences. The smugness evaporated that Monday morning, just like I knew it would. Everything collapsed, just like they deserved. And I walked away with my dignity intact.